amazing. A small river in the middle of the road as well. That's right. The whole thing was a bit surreal for me. Okay, this one's called Put the Message in the Box, I think.
I worked for a high street retailer for 20 years and just came to a period in my life when I actually thought I want to go on my own, really. And I've always collected music, I've always been into music, so a record shop was the obvious thing to do. Chose a first shop in Cheap Street and opened it, and then on the first sort of couple of days I think, God, what have I done? Because, you know, I was taking about, I think the first day I took £13, so it was like, oh God.
There would feel something quite odd about a world in which I didn't buy records and wasn't interested in what was the new thing. That's always the question, what's the new thing?
And if you listen now, you might hear.
I had a little Beatles fanzine when I was 9 years old called Beatles Monthly that I used to do on carbon paper. I'm a political journalist now, but I can't pretend that the single biggest influence on me and my understanding of who I am, and that was music.
There was a huge Tower Records on Broadway. What I would do is I would walk down there and just walk around the store all night. So it was a huge store and it had amazing stuff in it, and buy a dozen CDs for the trip, you know. And then one day I got there, I walked down there and it was gone and wasn't there anymore. And that's when I started taking heroin.
It says here that this year's born.
There's certainly something dreadfully intangible about digital music. You know, I don't think you have the same relation to it. It's just the sound, like the sound of that aeroplane going over. But owning a record is actually seeing the aeroplane and looking at the aeroplane and maybe even getting on the aeroplane.
I thought Spotify was a revelation when I got it. And it is, you know, an infinite jukebox, who would have thought? But then after about a year of hammering it, I came to the conclusion that I wasn't listening to music properly anymore. There's something about it still doesn't cater to the need for physicality, human contact, meeting fellow obsessives and walking away with something 12 by 12 and square that's going to see you through the next week. That's what it's all about.
Just remember, there are two sides to every story.
I had quite a few boxes of records. I had no CDs at the time, so I had a few boxes of cassettes, some 7-inch singles. So I think I started with about 20 boxes of LPs of all across all genres of music. The demand suddenly came through for new product, particularly sort of new charty product and back catalogues like sort of Van Morrison, Bob Dylan, Fairport Convention, things like that. And started importing stock and just went from there, really.
There's something arcane about Raves from The Grave. I don't know how to explain it really. It's a record store that's got too many records in it for the space that it actually occupies, which is kind of old style shop, you know, and I kind of like that.
Some record shops are quite exclusive, and Raves doesn't really feel like that. It has that element to it. If you go in the vinyl bit at the back, right, that's for the collectors. That's quite an elite crowd. But queuing up, if it's busy, everyone's there. On the occasions, you know, when I've just done a load of hard work and I'm surfacing, you want to go in and get a record. I quite like walking in there and sensing, God, I might come out of here with something I don't even know I'm going to buy.
The Warminster shop is predominantly the vinyl shop with still lots of CDs, but no DVDs, and the Froome shop is predominantly CDs and DVDs with, you know, a fair amount of vinyl as well. We sell lots of CDs and we still sell quite a few DVDs, but with the interest now in vinyl, particularly new represses of vinyl, that's obviously growing as well, and that seems to be sort of catching up and sort of taking over.
The heaviness of the vinyl, the thickness of the cardboard, and again, you have to commit, you know. It makes you invest your time in a record, and the problem with digital ways of consuming music is we don't give anything enough time.
You definitely get better value for money with vinyl than you do with CD. There's a lot more love and attention in the making of the product.
It's a much more of a physical medium, isn't it, than an MP3. You can't really sign an MP3, and so, you know, people tend not to bring them to gigs.
With second-hand vinyl, we get probably about 70–80% of people come to us. So they'll either ring us up or send us an email, or quite often just pop in the shop. I mean, occasionally people will just turn up with their car and open the boot of the car and there's 4 or 5 boxes of records in it.
The whole place sort of lends itself to physicality. The very fact that floor to ceiling there's records everywhere, you want to get them and look at them and pull the record out and all that stuff.
We pride ourselves on being able to sort of speak to customers, because that's something you generally can't do with Amazon. So if somebody wants something or wants advice on something or has bought something and wants to know what other artists they want to actually listen to, we do very, very well with that type of customer. So I think there still is a niche market for people like us as well.
I remember even when you could still go in record shops and buy albums, there were little shops like Raves in the Graves full of old 50s records that you couldn't find anywhere else, and sort of second-hand records and cutouts and stuff like that. So there's always been that kind of record shop around, and as everything else has gone online, I think Raves in the Graves has managed to keep that idea going, and it's good because, you know, you never know what you're going to find when you go in there. You know, the trouble with the internet is it tends to know what you want and send that sort of stuff to you, but with a place like Raves in the Graves, you might discover something really exciting.